Firefighters near Helena catch a break from Mother Nature, coming up the challenge and the blessing of rain for the crews battling the Lump Gulch fire. That blaze led to home evacuations on Saturday.
The Butte Airport was the scene of an emergency landing after a private plane's landing gear malfunctioned.
6:30 here on this Tuesday. Caitlin Corbett and Chet Lehman. We just heard this rain and cold weather is good for the fire.
Yep.
Not great for you when you were on the patio. Nice to be inside now.
And a little challenging for the crews that are still out there doing mop up on those fires as well.
Yeah.
Tomorrow morning, they're going to love what we have. Take a look at it. It's right there behind me. Winter storm watch in effect from 6 o'clock tonight until noon tomorrow for the purple or that blue shaded areas. We also have a winter weather advisory from 6 o'clock tonight until 6 o'clock Thursday morning for those areas out around the Beartooth. Temperatures right now in the 40s for the most part around. Rain showers falling depending on where you go. It's going to look like that for the rest of the day. Temperatures only warming into the low 50s. It could be breezy in the Bozeman area. Thunder showers possible in the Butte area. Temperatures again into the low 50s. And that's where we're going to stay at least for another day. Detailed forecast coming up, Caitlin, in about 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you for that, Chet. Well, we just heard this morning's rain has to be a welcome sight for the crews working on containing the wildfire burning between Helena and Clancy. That blaze did not grow yesterday either. Authorities say the Lump Gulch fire is still at 1,500 acres, now 15%
Leaders with the
contained.
incident management.
2 outbuildings have been lost in that fire, but no other structure damage has been reported. MTN's Jonathan Ambarian reports firefighters are now trying to work their way closer to the fire to get a more secure containment.
Team now in command of the Lump Gulch fire say they haven't seen much growth since they took over Sunday afternoon.
We received quite a bit of moisture on the fire, so helped cool it off a lot.
There are structures in the area, particularly on the south end of the fire in Jefferson County, but leaders say the immediate risk to homes remains low. Firefighters are now working their way along the perimeter of the fire, trying to establish containment lines. The terrain is very difficult. Most of the work is being done by hand crews, but they are also using heavy equipment to reach the fire.
The edge of it is very undefined. There's a lot of spots, so that's making it a lot more time consuming for the crews.
Another issue is the large number of snags, dead trees that create serious risks for firefighters.
A lot of standing dead timber in the area, and it makes it much more difficult for our crews to access due to the threat of trees falling on them while they're working.
In the next few days, leaders expect to get a better handle on the fire, but they say people in the area shouldn't be surprised if they still see some smoke.
For the foreseeable future, though, due to the way the fire burned, there will be interior smokes and smoldering that people will see in the fire. There's just areas we won't be able to get folks into.
In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
Crews were also on the scene of a small fire off the Porcupine Creek trailhead near Big Sky this past weekend. Big Sky Fire Department Deputy Chief Dustin Tatro says a crew of 7 was in on the initial attack. The fire was in dead and down trees and was about 200 by 200 feet in size. The U.S. Forest Service took over that fire and mopped up yesterday. It started at Sunday around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and wind was definitely a concern. The cause of that fire is not yet known. And just a heads up for you, Governor Steve Bullock will hold a virtual briefing at the state capitol today. The topic of discussion, the annual wildfire season, and how fire agencies are planning to respond in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. Some tense moments yesterday at the Burt Mooney Airport in Butte. MTN's John Amy was at the airport for an emergency landing.
There it goes.
Hold on.
You got it?
It was a tense moment at the Burt Mooney Airport Monday morning as a pilot managed to safely land his private plane despite having malfunctioning landing gear. The incident began just after 9 o'clock in the morning when the pilot of a twin-engine Cessna reported he had to make an emergency landing.
The landing gear wouldn't lock down. And so the pilot, we wanted to burn as much fuel as we could to lessen the risk of fire or explosion upon landing if there were sparks and there was an actual crash.
When conditions were right, the pilot carefully brought his crippled aircraft down on the south end of the runway. The dramatic scene drew many spectators to the area who were delighted to see the pilot safely land the plane.
And my heart was beating when he finally made the safe landing, and so I'm really proud of the guy.
First responders were on hand in case anything went wrong. Fortunately, the incident ended without injury.
You know, he knew the winds and he knew what he had to do and did a nice job. From what I understand, he's a veteran pilot, and it showed.
In Butte, John Amy, MTN News.
That pilot had to stay in the sky for more than 3 hours to burn off as much fuel as possible before making that landing. Last night, the Bozeman City Commission voted unanimously to support annexing and zoning 120 acres of undeveloped land located east of South 19th and south of Alder Creek Drive called Blackwood Groves. The commission approved the landowner's zoning request for a residential emphasis mixed-use designation. That calls for at least 70% of the development to be residential, the other 30% commercial. That could include restaurants and retail shops. The Bozeman City Commission also voted unanimously in support of changing their regular meetings from Monday to Tuesday nights. The commission met late into the night discussing policies related to the 2021 budget. Next week, commissioners will vote on adopting a formal budget. Job losses, meantime, continue to pile up in the oil patch. More than 9,200 jobs and counting just in the state of North Dakota. The latest report from North Dakota's Department of Mineral Resources warns that as funding for the government's Paycheck Protection Program expires, expect thousands of additional jobs to dry up as well. That's just some of the bad news from the Bakken oil fields this month. The number of active oil rigs is down to just 10 this month. Nationwide, the Baker Hughes oil rig count fell to 279 last week. That's an all-time low dating back to 1940. The current oil slump is also reflected in North Dakota's April production figures, which dropped by nearly 8 million barrels since March. North Dakota also saw the number of active fracking crews fall from 25 to 1. In Montana, Alan Olson, executive director of the Montana Petroleum Association, calls the current industry downturn, quote, the worst he's ever seen. The West Texas Intermediate crude oil price is hovering in the mid to upper 30s. Most industry analysts believe the demand for liquid fuels may have bottomed out in May. A return to full recovery levels, however, isn't expected until the first or second quarter of next year at best. 6:37 now. The American Red Cross is known for its continuing efforts to provide blood for those who need it most. Now the organization wants to let donors know if they've had the coronavirus through antibody testing. Starting immediately, the American Red Cross will test all blood donations for coronavirus antibodies, regardless if donors have shown symptoms in the past. The organization says those tests are solely to provide donors with personal information.
No, it's really for you. It's really for the donor to be able to see if they have been exposed to the virus, and the donor will have the opportunity to know what the test results were about 7 to 10 days afterwards. It's not for any research purposes. It's really just to let our donors know.
Donors need to call, go online, or go through the Blood Donor app to schedule an appointment. The next available blood drive will be June 26th at First Baptist Church in Bozeman. Glacier National Park, which has been lagging behind Yellowstone on reopening, is beginning to add some more services. The west entrance gate will no longer close at 4:30 p.m. and going to the Sun Road is open to Avalanche and the campground available for day use parking. The Village Inn Hotel and Lake McDonald Lodge now open to overnight guests. Visitors can expect to find uncleared hiking trails and debris with downed timber. Due to public safety concerns, congestion, and gridlock, the Going to the Sun Road might be closed temporarily on and off throughout the day. Certainly good news to see those facilities somewhat returning to normal. 6:38 now. We're going to take a quick break here on Montana This Morning, but when we come back, Republicans in the Senate begin hearings this morning on nationwide police reform. What's being proposed, that's all coming up, and first here's a look ahead to what will be on CBS at 7.
Good morning. Ahead on CBS This Morning, anger and pain continue in Atlanta over the shooting of Richard Brooks, the latest on possible charges against the officers involved in his death. Also, former Defense Secretary Robert Gates will join us. Hear what he has to say about racism in America as a national security issue. Plus, we'll show you the challenges of working out in the new normal. And exclusively on CBS This Morning, Oprah shares her new book club selection, and the book's author explains its message about the power of forgiveness. All that coming up when we see you at 7.